Okay, so I find this evidence pair to be pretty difficult. But part of the reason is that the choices are hard. Another reason is that the passage is hard. So there's a lot to sort through, and it can be difficult to know whether or not you've hit the right pair of answers. So here's how you should approach difficult, dense passages: is focus less on the specifics. Our general goal is to find matching ideas. And if a choice seems to check off a lot of boxes for us, right? It accomplishes a lot of the goals that we think are part of the question, part of the line reference, then it's probably a good sign. And we might not fully understand why the choice works, but the more matching ideas, the safer the bet on that choice. So when we do these pairs, we always want to follow the QLC method, right? Question, line reference, choices go in that order. But especially here, we need to make sure we're paying attention to the question. It's very specific, and it's going to give us a task or a couple tasks that we need to make sure we're looking for in the line references. So what do we see here? So what does passage 1 suggest about the U.S. government's provisions for the institution of slavery? So let me focus on this. So if we break it down, slavery as framed in the Constitution. Right, so those are the two ideas that I think are going to be really important as I sort through the lines in this passage. I need to talk about slavery in some way, and I need to talk about the Constitution and the framing of the Constitution in some way. So there we go. Let's go through 10 to 16. What do we see? That is up here, 10 to 16. Choice A. During that period, or here it starts with we have. I hate when they do this. We have extended our territory from the Mississippi to the Pacific Ocean. We have acquired the Floridas and Texas and other territories sufficient to double our geographical extent. We have increased in population, in wealth, and in power beyond any example on earth. Well, it just means that they expanded. I don't think that has anything to do with slavery, nor does it have anything to do with the Constitution. So that just seems wrong. I don't like it. Seems irrelevant. 25 to 27. 25 to 27 is right here. I now come back to the question, why cannot this union exist forever, divided into free and slave states? So there's that idea of slavery, as our fathers made it. Well, here's where we really need to stick to the find matching ideas strategy, right? They're not going to just say the exact same words. They're going to change the words, but maintain the idea. And when they were talking before about framing in the Constitution, that's kind of like when the country was founded. And now we're talking about our founding fathers. So it's a bit of a stretch, but that's the kind of stuff that you want to just look for. And look, maybe we find a better line reference later on, but my job at this stage of the process is not to be too critical. If something is completely irrelevant, we get rid of it. But if I can make it fit, for now, I want to keep it in because I don't know, maybe it is the right answer. I don't want to toss out the right answer accidentally. If it's really, really bad, like choice A was, then get rid of it. But this is certainly talking about slavery, and if I bend the lines a little bit, it seems like it's also talking about the framing of the Constitution. So I should keep it. Let's look at C, though. Let's see if we get anything better there. 35 to 39. That's here. We must bear in mind that we are yet a young nation, growing with a rapidity unequaled in the history of the world, and that our national increase is great, and that the emigration from the old world is increasing, requiring us to expand and acquire new territory from time to time. Okay, so that doesn't seem to be talking about slavery at all. It doesn't seem to be talking about the past, the framing of the Constitution. It seems to be talking about the future. That's a different thing. So notice here, I still have those same two ideas that I'm looking for, but even stretching it, I don't see either of those ideas. That means that C is very likely wrong. It doesn't seem to be related to the original question. Let's look at D. 41 to 45 is right here. If we live upon the principle of states' rights and state sovereignty, each state regulating its own affairs and minding its own business, we can go on and extend indefinitely just as fast and as far as we need the territory. So maybe if I were trying to make it fit, I could say something like, the principle of states' rights and state sovereignty. Maybe that has something to do with the framing of the Constitution. It's a bit of a stretch, but then again, so was the stretch we made in choice B. But I think that I would know if they were talking about slavery here, and I really just don't see that at all, right? They're talking about increasing the size of the country, I guess, but slavery doesn't make an appearance. So just like that, because I used the question to guide me, to give me purpose, to give me tasks, I was able to sort through the line references and come down to one choice that's probably right. Now, I'm not 100% sure because it wasn't like an obvious connection, but it was the only one that seemed to check off the two tasks that the question gave me, slavery and the framing of the Constitution. So far, that seems pretty good. Now, what would be really great is if I could also find those same matching ideas in one of the choices for number 33, right? This is a triple in a way. We think of it as a pair of questions, but really it's a triple. The question, the line reference, and the choices all need to line up and get across the same ideas. So let's see what we've got here, see if we can make some sense of this. So they included no means for reconciling differences between free states and slave states. Well, if I go back to the line, it seems to be suggesting the opposite, right? Why can't the union exist with both of these kinds of states, free and slave, right? Whereas A is saying it can't. The question in B seems to suggest that there's no reason it can't, that it seems like it should be able to persist forever, right? So, okay, the other problem for me is just that phrase, no means, is super strong. I need evidence of that. That literally means zero. There's zero way for reconciling the difference between free and slave states. That's a strong claim that I don't have support for. So this is wrong for a couple reasons. It does not match with that line reference. B, they anticipated the Union's expansion into Western territories. Well, this choice doesn't really, or this line reference doesn't really talk about expansion. Yes, most of the passage does, but this particular spot doesn't, right? It's asking more about just whether or not the free and the slave states can exist together. I don't know what that has to do with the Western territories. That just seems like kind of a random thought right now. So that doesn't seem good. Maybe you keep it in because that seems to be what the passage is about, but I don't. The line is not about it, right? The line needs to match up. C, they provided a good basic structure that does not need to be changed. Okay, well, are they saying that the framing of the Constitution is good? Well, I guess they're saying why can't it exist forever as our fathers made it? So it seems like maybe the way that the fathers made it is good so that it can exist forever. It does not need to be changed. So forever kind of matches with that idea, right? Forever does not need to be changed. Again, this is a stretch. I really don't know. It doesn't feel right, but it doesn't also feel obviously wrong. So for now, I'm just going to say, let's see what D is and see if it's any better. They were founded on an assumption that slavery was necessary for economic growth. Compare these two, right? C and D is an obvious difference between these two choices. Do they mention economic growth? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They talk about expansion and all that stuff in other lines, but in this particular place, they do not talk about economics at all. There's no money, there's no business, there's no any commerce, none of those key words that we would expect are here. So this is a good example of what we're really doing on the entire reading section, is we're struggling between finding right answers and finding wrong answers, right? Our instinct a lot of times is to look for the right answer, and we're trying that right now. That's what the find matching ideas strategy is about, and it really helped us. It really helped us get line reference B here, because those ideas matched and none of the others did. But we also did the opposite here for number 33. I do not think that choice C is particularly good. It's a stretch. So finding matching ideas between choice C and that line reference B is very difficult here. But on the other side, I know the ideas that I'm supposed to find if I look at choices D, choice A, choice B, right? And I don't find those ideas in the passage. So I know that those are wrong because there's no way for me to be confused about economic growth. If they're talking about economic growth, I'm going to know it. If they're talking about not changing the Constitution, it's a little harder here. I mean, there's some clues. It doesn't come out and say it, but existing forever, it's close enough. And so there we go. That's going to be the answer to number 33, basically, because everything else is much more obviously wrong. So we're always doing this in reading. We're looking for the matching ideas. We don't need to understand the big picture. In fact, sometimes the big picture can get us in trouble because the big picture might lead us to choice B here because we forget that we're not being asked about the expansion. We're being asked about this very specific thing, and all the other lines that are about expansion really don't impact our decision for this question. So we really need to just kind of make sure we have a clear sense of what we are asked and try to narrow our focus as much as possible to a few words and phrases and ideas that we expect to see in the lines and in the choices, and then be okay getting rid of choices that obviously don't have those things and picking one that's kind of meh, like isn't great, but isn't terrible either. That's how I get a lot of questions right in the SAT. Not by knowing that the right answer is right, but by knowing that the wrong answers are wrong. That's an important change. Keep that in mind. This is a hard pair of questions, but we got it right by focusing on small ideas and trying to match things up. Big important strategy.